We're going to be looking at today at any other type of roots. We've looked at square roots, but now we're going to be looking at simplifying other types of roots or radicals. On this first problem, it's a geometry one that you hopefully have seen kind of in the past. It says a volume of a sphere, okay, can be found with this formula. And back in geometry, you saw that formula 4/3 pi r cubed. Find the radius of the sphere if the volume is 225. So if we know the volume, we should insert that in for V and then try to figure out what the radius is. So let's see if we can solve this out. Okay, well, if you're going to solve this, we could start out, since we got dividing by 3 there, we could multiply both sides by 3. Okay, so if we multiply that, that's 675. Now we got 4 pi r cubed left. Now we could divide. So if we divide here, we could, because it's being multiplied, we could divide by 4. That would cancel out. Now this is 168.75. Okay, we still don't have r by itself. It's still being multiplied by something, so let's divide by pi. If you do that, you get 53.71. Okay, now the last step, we got to undo that power 3, and that's kind of the stuff we're going to be getting into today. If you undo power 3, you don't want to do square root. What we want to do to undo power 3 would be to take the cubed root of this number. Okay, so anytime you want to undo a power, you should do the root that has the same number here as this power you see there. So to do that, you'll want to go on your calculator, type that in, and see what you're going to get for that value. Okay, so let's go to our calculator to do that. If we type in cubed root, now you can do any root on your calculator by hitting the root number first 3. Find where it says kind of x square root. On this calculator, that would be in the math menu. So if you go to math, this one, number 5, that says x square root, and that'll insert that number in for the index of the root. And then type in whatever you want to take the root of here would be 53.71. Hit enter, and it looks like the radius of this one's pretty close to about 3.77 centimeters. Okay, so you can undo any power by doing that same root. And that's what we're going to kind of be looking at today. So on these problems here, we're going to kind of fill in this chart on your note sheet of what the answer would be. So if you have a squared equals 4, we would solve that by doing the opposite. And the opposite of power 2 would be to take the square root. Now remember though here, if we do this, a would equal the square root of 16, but it's plus or minus the square root of 16, because whether you we end up with positive or negative 4, both numbers work here, because 4 squared equals 16, but also negative 4 squared also equals 16. Negative 4 times negative 4 is also positive 16. So there's 2 answers there. Okay, can we do the same thing with if it would have been negative? Well, no, because we know we can't do square roots of negatives. This would come out to not exist. This does not exist. We could solve for the imaginary answer if we changed that negative to an I. We could get the imaginary answer of 4i or I imaginary 4, but it's not. There's no real solution to that. All right, let's look at cubed root. If we do cubed root of 27, we would do that by taking the cubed root of 27. And the cubed root of 27, if you go on your calculator, should come out to be equal 3. Now, is this one going to be plus or minus 3 like the last one? Well, let's see. If we say that it could be negative 3, is negative 3 to the third power also 27? Well, what does negative 3 to the third power mean? It means we'd be multiplying negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3. And if we did that, Negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. If we times that by another negative 3, we'd get negative 27. Is negative 27 the same as positive 27? No. So this cubed root only has one answer, only positive 3. Negative 3 does not work. However, can you do the cubed root of negative 27? You can do cubed roots of negatives. This answer would come out to be negative 3. So you can do cubed roots of negatives, but we can't do square roots of negatives. All right, let's look at some other powers here. All right, next one. How would we solve a to the fourth equals 81? Well, to solve this one, we would do the fourth root of 81. And to do that, use your calculator, how we talked about. Type in 4, find that x square root 1. So that does the fourth root. Let's type in 81. What number times itself 4 times would equal 81? 3. So here we would put 3. Now, is that the only answer? Well, could it be negative 2? Let's think about this. If we did a negative 3 to the fourth power, would that also equal negative 1? That'd be negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3. Well, we know 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 4 times is going to equal 81. Would this come out to be positive? Yeah. If you multiply 2 negatives, that's going to come out to be positive. If you multiply another 2 negatives, that's also positive. This does come out to equal positive 81. So this is going to equal plus or minus, or positive or negative 3. Can you do the fourth root of negative 81? No, this one is also going to be, does not exist. Watch when we do this. Try this one on the calculator. So let's do fourth root of negative 81. Watch what the calculator is going to tell us. Error does not, it's not a real answer. So you can't do these ones when it's negative. It would have an imaginary answer again. The imaginary answer would be imaginary 3, but it doesn't have a positive or a real answer. So that one doesn't work. Let's look at fifth root here. What's the fifth root of 32? We would do that by doing, or a to the fifth equals 32. We'd solve that by doing the fifth root of 32. If you put that in your calculator, you can solve it. Fifth root 32, we get 2. 2 to the fifth power equals that. So here the answer would be 2. Okay, would it equal could negative 2 be an answer to? Nope. Okay, but can we do the fifth root of negative 32? Yeah, that would equal negative 32. Watch when we try this one on the calculator. It should work. So if we do negative 32, it is negative 2. So what we're saying here then is some things that you should see. You can do, if you're doing any problem here, no matter what the root number is, you can find out what the answer is going to be by taking the nth root. Whatever that number is, take that same root and you can find out a. Now, if it's an even one, if n is even, then your answer is going to be plus or minus whatever this comes out to be, because it could be positive or negative. Okay, but you would not be able to, or you cannot do then the nth root of whatever it would be if it's negative, because notice what happened anytime we tried doing the negative version of it, it didn't work out. Okay, so you cannot do this. This is gonna not exist if it's even. Okay, what happens though if n is odd? Then you can do it. Notice that any of these odd ones you were able to do. So this will give you an answer. This does exist. Okay, but if you do the with a positive number, you're only going to get the one answer. You're not going to get plus or minus. There's just one solution if n is odd. Okay. All right, so we're going to focus on doing some of these today. The idea is not that hard. We just got to be able to execute it. So on number one, what is the square root of 25x to the fourth? Easy. Square root of 25 is 5. Square root of x to the fourth. Remember, we did these before. Square root means there's kind of like a little 2 here. And then you want to divide when there's exponents. 4 divided by 2 means this is going to be 5x squared. Okay, let's look at number 2. We want to do the negative square root of this. Now, can we do this because there's a negative? If this negative were inside of the square root, no. But because it's on the outside, that doesn't really affect our square root. So our answer is just going to be negative of whatever this part comes out to be. So what is that going to be? Well, remember square root is, again, it's like there's a little 2 there. And we see that there's an exponent. We want to divide that. So 8 divided by 2 means that our new power is going to be 4. And then this stuff would just be inside. That would be the answer to this one. Let's try another problem. Number 3, what is this one going to be? Now we don't have square root. We got a different root here. It's root 5. So we want to figure out what's the 5th root of 32. I think we had this one already. If we go back to our little chart, we had done 5th root of 32 ends up equaling 2. So the number part's 2. Now with the exponents, you want to divide. What's 15 divided by 5? X to the 3. What's 20 divided by 5? Y to the 4th. And that would be your answer. All right, number 4, square root of negative 9. Can we do that one? No, there's no real solution. If it's an even root, you can't do even roots of negatives. This has no real solution. Now we could find the imaginary one. Remember we did that back in unit 4. Unit 4 we learned about that. The negative we can turn to an I, and then we can simplify the rest of this. Square root of 9 is 3. So the answer would be imaginary 3 if you want to find the imaginary answer. But there is no real solution to this one. All right, why don't you guys pause it, try 5 and 6, see what you come up with. All right, let's see what you got. You should have gotten 9y cubed for number 5. For number 6, if you do the 6th root of 729, it should have came out to be 3. And then you remember you're dividing here, so you should have gotten x to the 5th and y to the 3rd would be the answer there. Okay, on the back of your note sheet, if you got the same power here as you see there, then if you do 8, you remember you're dividing 8 divided by 8, that's x to the 1st power, just plain old x. So if you see that they're the same, then it would just be, they would just kind of cancel out. All right, number 8, okay, 4th root of this. Okay, now notice here there's 2 things being times. So we want to take the 4th root of each thing. Let's start out and figure what is the 4th root of 81. If you go on your calculator, we could do that. 4th root of 81. I think we did this one already too. It would equal 3. So that part of it equals 3. Now we got to also figure out what's the 4th root of this. Well, notice there's a power here and a root. So anytime there's a power and a root, you want to divide those. 12 divided by 4 would be 3. So then it would be a plus 1 to the 3rd power. There's your solution. All right, let's try a couple more out here. Number 9, square root of 100x to the 10th. Square root, remember, we know how to do square root. Square root of 100, that's 10. That's easy. Remember when you're doing it with exponents, so it's like there's a little 2 there. So 10 divided by 2 should be x to the 5th. And finally, number 10. This is kind of similar to that number 8 problem. Why don't you pause the video and see if you can get this one. All right, let's see what you got. Square root of 64 is 8. And then, again, there's like a 2 there. So 14 divided by 2 should have gotten to the 7th power for the answer there. All right, couple word problems where you would use this. This one says the distance a planet is from the sun is a function of the length of its year. This formula, where d is the distance from a planet to the sun in millions of miles and t is the number of Earth days in the planet's year. If the length of a year on Mars is 687 Earth days, how far is the sun from Mars? Where should we plug in the 687? Should we plug it in for t or should we plug it in for d? Was it a time or is it a distance? Earth days is a time. We want to plug that in for t. So let's see what we get when we do that. D would equal the cubed root of 6 times 687 is what we're plugging in for d squared. So now we just want to figure out, well, what's that going to equal? This, to me, looks like a calculator problem. If we put that in the calculator, we should be able to solve that out. So do cubed root of 6 times parentheses 687, close the parentheses. Don't forget about the squared because there's a squared in that equation. Hit enter and we should get the answer. Looks like we get about 141.5. Now be careful here. That's not the solution. And they might throw something like this at you on like ACT. You got to look at what they said. The distance the planet is from the sun is that in millions of miles. So it would be 141.5 million miles. Okay, so it may, if that was how the multiple choice was on the ACT, you could just circle that one. Otherwise, what would you have to do to figure out what it would be as a number? Millions means you would have to take this and times it by a million. Okay, so if you want the actual number answer, then you would take that and times it by a million and you would get the answer. So be careful, especially when they give you, when it's worded like that on the problem. All right, last one, number 12. The stone spheres of Costa Rica were made by forming granodiorite boulders into spheres. One of the stone spheres has a volume of about, and they give you a volume there. What's the diameter of the stone sphere? Reminder, a sphere can be found by using this. So this is that same equation we started with. You can find the volume of the sphere with that. We know the volume right here. See if you can, just like we did on the first problem, see if you can solve this one out and see what you get. Okay, so pause the video, try this one out, see what your answer comes out to be. All right, let's see what you got here. You want to substitute that in for the volume, and you want to solve that. Very similar to that first problem. If you times both sides by 3 to start, you could get rid of that 3 then. Comes out to be that. Okay, next, we want to solve for r, so you want to get rid of this other stuff. It's being times. Now here, since you could, if you wanted to, divide both of these at the same time, if you want to divide them both by 4 pi, and that would eliminate. So that would be one idea if you want to do that. If you do that, you should get that r cubed would be equal to about 27,000. Last step, now take the cubed root of that, and you get the answer. And the answer for r comes out to be 60. Now, careful. If you would circle 60 on the ACT, you'd be wrong. They asked what's the diameter. So remember, diameter is double the radius. Diameter would be, or sorry, this does not come out to be 60. I screwed up. This comes out to be 30. So the diameter, if you double that, would be 60. 60 inches is the diameter. So just make sure you answer the question. All right, try the practice ones out.